should not believe that.
Hello, this is Melissa Libby, and welcome to Mom Treading Water. Thank you for coming back to part 2 of my interview with Dr. Fanike Young. Please note that this episode does contain explicit language and topics that may not be appropriate for younger listeners. In this part 2 of our interview, Dr. Fanike is going to be sharing more about her journey on her relationships with her husband and how she came through that journey of healing from her own trauma and making decisions from a healed place. We will also discuss in more detail her book, What the F is Your Problem? Becoming an Active Worker in Healing Your Trauma. If this is your first time joining Mom Treading Water, welcome and thank you for being here. If you are returning, thank you for coming back, and I hope you have been enjoying this interview with Dr. Fanike. I know for myself, it's been a very eye-opening experience. Please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Each time you do that, it does improve the analytics and helps with the growth of Mom Treading Water. You can also follow Mom Treading Water on Facebook under the name of Mom Treading Water, on Instagram at Imperfect Mom Treading Water, Pinterest, TikTok, and YouTube. Be sure to check out our website at momtreadingwater.com, and that's also where you can join our weekly email list. In the show notes, I will also include all of Dr. Fanike's contact information. Here is part 2 of my interview with Dr. Fanike Young, author of What the F is Your Problem? Becoming an Active Worker in Healing Your Trauma. Hello, this is Melissa Libby with Mom Treading Water, and welcome back for our second part of our interview with Dr. Fanike. Friends, if you have not caught the first part, make sure you catch it. Such an exciting conversation. So Dr. Fanike, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Thank you. So we ended the last episode. You were talking that your husband, he had a list that were important qualities for him and his wife. And then you were like, haha, ding, ding, I have a list too. And you had pulled out your list. Mm-hmm. All right. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I sure can. So what that taught me, right, in that moment is it kind of affirmed to me, right? So I feel like sometimes we say stuff, it's like, yeah, everything happens for a reason. And, yeah, we can manifest and we have the power to manifest. What that did in that moment, though, was like affirm for me, like, oh, no, this is real. Like when you are intentional, when you really put the energy into something, what you focus on, like your thoughts really become things, right? Mm-hmm. And so we both had these lists, and it was all of the things that we both, wanted and we felt like we needed in a partner. What I didn't know to ask for, right? Because I had never really seen a marriage or relationship that looked like what I thought it should look like, or that I wanted it to look like. The closest thing was like my grandparents. But even then, it wasn't a lot of like affection. It wasn't a lot of, nurturing and care. Like I didn't really see that, I kind of saw them existing together, but I just felt like I wanted something else. And so I didn't know to ask for certain things, but he came with like all these different qualities that I didn't even know to ask for. And so, for example, when we met, I had just trademarked my sprays. I make these air balancing energy sprays. And I was like, I want to change my packaging. I had just come off a retreat and, I was like, I want to change my packaging. I want to do all these things. And he like went online and he's like, I found the bottles for you. And he's like, they're in Tennessee. Now we live in Georgia. So he's like, they're in Tennessee. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, and my cousin lives there, who's like a brother to me, because my husband was the only child of his mom. He said, my cousin lives there and he's like a brother to me and we were raised together. He said, so let's go get the bottles and then we're going to go see my cousin so he can meet you. And I was like, okay, all right. And so a part of this story, right, that I've probably never even told anyone is that someone had accessed my bank account and scam money out of my account. So, and I didn't find out. So we're like in the car
Oh
going
my
to
gosh.
Tennessee. And so I find out because I'm a person who I check my bank account like
Yeah.
at least 1 to 2 times a day. And so I see this and I tell him and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm like telling him and I'm like emotional and I'm like crying and this and this and that. And he says, it's okay. You're with me. I got you. You're fine. And so when we get there, we get to Tennessee and he's like, okay, do you want to get some food? Are you good? This and this and that. And I'm sure he was like, now at this point, we had only known each other for we had known each other maybe 2 weeks, maybe, perhaps, maybe somewhere in there. And so we go, and of course, he makes sure I'm good. He takes care of me and everything. And we just, so like I was saying, I didn't know to ask for that. I didn't know to ask for, someone who wouldn't judge me, someone who would speak to me, in a calm way, someone who would be not okay when I have a trauma response, but wouldn't respond aggressively, because I had those moments, especially I remember when we were about to get married. So we met in June 2017. We were married by February 2018. And he officially proposed in October of 2017. So within 4 months, he had gotten all my family together. My siblings were there. Everybody was there, and he was proposing. And when he proposed, after he proposed, that's when the trauma responses really started kicking up, the fear, the insecurities, the, checking his phone, the doubts, he doesn't really love me. Is this a setup? This isn't going to last, all of those things, right? Those negative thoughts. And all of it was rooted in childhood trauma. And so the thing that I loved about him is the things would come up, the fears would come up, the questions. And he never responded with aggression. So he never, said you're crazy or you're this or you're that, this and that. And I was honest with him, we were very honest with each other, I think, from the beginning. And I shared with him my background and I told him, I have trust issues, right? I have huge trust issues. And I said, a lot of that is just rooted in, witnessing my father, abusing my mom, because I felt like my mom really loved my dad. And I was like, if he could do that to her, knowing that she really loved him, right? So it sent all types of messages, to me. I was wired to not trust. And my mom, who was also just verbally abusive towards us and emotionally avoidant. My mom, we didn't grow up in a household with her saying she loved us and, good job. I am I'm an overachiever. Because, if I made a 97 or a 98, I was an honor roll kid and I went to gifted schools and, always. And if I brought home a 97 or a 98, it wasn't good job. It was, where's the 100? And so just never feeling oh, it's enough. I'm enough. It's enough, And so I brought all of that into this relationship. And it was crazy because on the exterior for years, I had been able to hide all of that stuff. I had been able to hide it. And my husband, and I'm getting emotional now, but my husband, because he was so gentle. Now, see, he grew up in a household where he was affirmed, he was loved. His mom, they spent time together, they did stuff together. His grandmother loved, very, very affectionate. He grew up in a very affectionate household. So he was very affectionate, very loving, very supportive. Everything that wasn't in my household was in his household. And so I wasn't able to hide the stuff anymore because he was so gentle that I kind of like let my guard down, you know? And I had my guard up for years. And so in me letting my guard down though, it's like opening the floodgates. Everything starts to be exposed, the things start to come out. And I remember just having this fear, like, he's not going to want to be with me because I have so much stuff, right? I come with like all of this stuff. And he never, he never left. He never changed. He never, and I was like waiting, like, okay, he's going to like change and he's going to flip the script, and never, like never. And even now, to this day, I remember last night we were laying in bed and we were like kind of like looking at each other, and he like smiled a little bit. And I said, "What are you smiling about?" And he was like, "You're my best friend." He was like, I just love you. And, he's been like super consistent. So what I will say is my husband, although we haven't been together for a really, really, really long time, he is probably the most consistent person in my life. And I never feel like I cannot say things to him, even, and we have tough conversations when we need to, but I never feel attacked. And so, even when he says something to me that I don't want to hear, I never take it like he doesn't have my best interest in heart, or he is, trying to attack me, or he's saying it to hurt me. I never take it like that. But even now, I've gotten so much better in that space. So I've grown a lot, during this time that we have been together. And it's crazy about trauma because trauma is so layered. And so you can never really say, yeah, this incident has caused me to do like this and this and that. Like it's so layered that you really don't know a lot of times until you're in a certain situation or a certain thing comes up. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you have to respond. And that's when like, okay, there's more to it. Because I would have never known, because my first husband, the marriage was nothing like this. And so I never was able to let my guard down because I was busy being caregiver. Whereas this relationship, he takes care of me. For the first time, it's like someone takes care of me, like, what do you need? What do you need me to do? How do you need me to help? Even I had my event this weekend and he's like, okay, what do you need me to do? And so my sister, and he'll say it too, he's like, you're so spoiled. But that's new for me because I've always felt like, well, I have to do everything and I have to manage everything and I have to take care of everything and I have to take care of everyone. And so for the first time, I get to like just go sit in the car and just let somebody else, handle everything else. Or, when I get home, just go in the house and he'll get everything out the car and I don't have to worry about it. Or, it's just a different vibe. And I feel like for the first time, I'm really able to tap into and express my femininity, right? Because that's a whole nother thing. So even just being able to really tap into that part, which is so powerful, right? That femininity is so, it's so beautiful, like, and especially as a woman, when you can truly access it, it's so powerful, right? Because that divine feminine is like, that's where your intuition is. That's where you really get to like listen, and you can hear, and really like connect. And so I feel like as women though, because of trauma, we miss that part, right? So many of us are operating from another, perspective, because we can't, sit and really tap into that part of us that allows us to just be vulnerable and, vulnerable with ourselves, and really become clear on, who we are and what we're supposed to be doing and where we're supposed to go. Right before this interview, I did a consultation call with a potential client. And she started off by saying, I'm a single mom. And I said, okay, just tell me about your day to day. And she said, well, I get up, I have to cook breakfast for my kids. I take them to school. I make their lunch. And then I got to start preparing to go get them. And then when they get home, they have sports. And I do this for them. Like everything was like for them. And I said, okay. And then what do you do for yourself? And she's like, I don't even know what that is. And when that happens, we talked about that. And I said to her, that's a trauma response. When you feel like you can't prioritize yourself or you can't take care of yourself, right? That's what that is. That comes from trauma. And that's why I define trauma the way I do, because somewhere in her life, there's been a messaging around, and she kept saying, like, at least we were on call for 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, like 4 times, she mentioned, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden. And I said, you're operating from a trauma response. So because you don't want to, quote unquote, be a burden, you feel like you have to do everything and you won't build a support system, right? But how long do you think that you can really do that? And so what happens is a lot of times we do that, right? We design these lives and we just kind of start going through the motions, but we're not really like living, right? We're not really like, she said, yeah, I take trips and I do this and I do that. But it was the vibration was very low when she was saying it. And I said, do those things even feel good to you? So you're telling me you do all this stuff, right? You're saying you go to the gym. Does it even feel good to you? And she thought about it. She said, no. And I said, then why are you doing it? And she said, because I think that's what I'm supposed to do. And how many of us are operating at that level, right? And we're just doing stuff because we think that's what we're supposed to do because someone else has said that's what you're supposed to, right? That's trauma.
Wow. I never thought of that in that way. So you were saying that you were speaking with the client. So other than, I mean, obviously you have your book and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but can you talk a little bit more about what you do with your clients?
Yeah. So my goal with my clients is to get them to ascend to the next level in their lives, right? So what I have found is that we all have some place in us that keeps us in this cycle of operating, right, in these trauma responses. Mm-hmm. And if you're not conscious of it, right, it just happens. You don't even know that it's happening. But what it does is it usually forces us to suppress and to minimize, right, ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And, if I ask you right now, Melissa, do you feel like you're operating at your, like, from a place of your full potential? Do you feel like you are operating, right, in your day-to-day from a place of your higher self? Have you expanded, right? Have you allowed yourself to expand in your visions and your goals and your dreams?
Not fully.
So the thing is that you're not alone, right? And so many of us, I would say that about 95% of us are operating from that place. So what I do is I help women to make life decisions from a healed space as opposed to from a trauma space. And a lot of times they don't even realize that they're doing it, until we start doing, the energy work, until we start doing the, processing, the tapping into, the stuff, right? Digging into those layers. And they realize then that they've made most of their life decisions from a place of trauma, right? But what if we moved that, right? What if we healed it, right? What would your life look like? And so I have clients that, like right now I'm working with a woman who she's done like all this amazing work with like all these organizations, like big organizations. And, she had like workplace trauma. And now she's shifting into her own business, but she was so scared, the judgment. And what if I put this out there and people and this and this and that? So we had to do work around that, and now she's killing it. She's killing it. She started off with, my goal is to make $10,000 a month in my business. And I don't operate from we're going to make this money, because I'm not a business coach. I get you past the trauma. And then the other stuff comes with it. Once you heal those pieces, it comes, we don't have to focus on the money. But I said to her, okay, now it's time to raise your goal. Right. So before we finish working together, I want you to go to the next level. What does the next level in your life look like? And we talked about, the routines. We talked about, the health. We talk about, all of that. And so she's killing it. It just happens because she's tapped in. And it's like, once you tap in, then the other stuff, you're going to attract the other stuff. See, right now, you're attracting things from that trauma space. So if I can help you shift that energy and heal that, then naturally you'll just start to attract all of the great things, right? So that's how we work. I work with them on an integrated level. And so we're focusing on their physical, their mental, emotional, their spiritual, their financial. We focus on their business, their relationships, their health and wellness. We focus on their relationship with themselves, and them tapping into their own power and learning how to access it and then use it.
I feel a little speechless, and that very rarely ever happens. This is just honestly, personally, very enlightening for me right now. If folks want to get in touch with you and work with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Just go to my website, drfanike.com, and they'll see like work with me, and they can just go there and schedule a consultation, and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. And I'll include all of that information absolutely in the show notes so people can access you very, very quickly. So I guess that's probably our transition to talk a little bit more about your book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have to ask, where does that title come from? I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it.
It definitely, catches people's attention. So what the fuck is your problem actually came from my husband and I. Like, we went somewhere, and we're here in Atlanta, so it's a lot of Black people. And we went somewhere, and we came out of wherever we were, and we're sitting in the parking lot, and we're just kind of watching people, which we do. Like, we people watch. And so like, we're like people watching, and whatever place we were at, it's a lot of Black women coming out of the place. And, we're watching. Right? And so initially it's fun, right? And we're like, Dad, she looked like somebody just, stole her puppy, or Dad, she looked like somebody just, and my husband's like, Dad, like, what the fuck is her problem? Right. And, we're laughing, and then it turns into like a serious conversation. Right. And this conversation transitions to, like, like, we just carry so much stuff, right? Especially as just women, just carry so much. And, we're wives, we're moms, we're business owners, we're nurses, we're secretaries, we're, I'm a chef, at least 5 days out the week, all of those things. And so it was like, and then we have like our stuff that we never feel like we can work on because we're so busy managing everything else. And I come home and I'm like, I know the name of my book. He's like, what? And then I'm like, it's What the Fuck Is Your Problem?
Love it.
And then, the rest is history.
I mean, it is a great title. I have to admit, it is a great title. And I think that's true. I think women, like, and I say this all the time, like, we don't have to be superheroes. We don't have to be Superwoman. We don't need to take this on all on.
Right.
We don't. But you don't have a good support system. You don't have someone, with a partnership, like you said about your husband, and so many characteristics you were saying about your husband are exactly like my husband. And that was a very, very new thing for me in a relationship. Almost like, okay, when's the other shoe gonna drop? Like, I'm waiting. Come on, baby. And so I get, when you were talking about that, I get exactly what you're talking about. So do you want to talk a little bit more about your book and what?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, the book is rooted in, and I share like some of my own trauma in there. And the book is rooted in me interviewing. I interviewed, I think, 8 women, and they all share like different accounts of traumas that they've experienced. And that's important, like the traumas range from pregnancy loss to infidelity in relationships to divorce to health scares to losing a parent, to failing a national exam after being on autopilot. It all ranges. That's important. But the most important part is, how did they start to heal from the trauma, right? And so a lot of it is about, what are the coping tools, right? What are the tools, the techniques, the things that you can use to fill your toolkit, right? So that you have it, so that you have those resources. How can you start the process? And so people have read the book and they're like, your book is the thing I didn't even know I needed. I was able to identify with so much of, what's in the book. And it's not a long read, but what I find is that it's a very interesting read. And so people have like read it in like 2 days, 2-3 days. Oh. They can't put it down, right? And so of course I love that. But the revelations that happen, from reading it is a thing that like makes the difference. So I'm super excited about it because of that. Because I'm on a mission, to help heal as many people as I can. And men have purchased the book as well and found it super helpful also. So I feel like we don't talk enough about, the things that linger. Mm-hmm. We live in this culture of just get up and go, don't focus on what's in the inside, like worry about what's on the outside. And your insides need to be just as beautiful as your outsides, and so I want people to take their healing into their own hands and really understand that they have the power to heal.
And I don't mean to keep coming back to that photo of you again, because it's just, but that's what I said to you in the beginning. I said, I mean, obviously physically, yes, you're stunning.
Thank you.
But it is that feeling. It's that, like, again, I get the goose. We're talking, I'm getting the goosebumps again, but it's like that inner beauty, that inner love, that positive energy. Yeah. There's that. Wow. I mean, it's such an important message, especially just so many things that are going on in our country with, at the time of this recording right now, there was another shooting in Texas, and his school and his parents. Obviously, it's so hard not to be shaken by that. So this is such an important message. This is such important topics that need to be discussed. And I mean, I can only speak from my own perspective that I know I have traumas that I've never said out loud to anyone before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, do you find that happens with people? Like they just like, they can't say it, or even just by saying it to someone, do you think that becomes a step in healing that trauma? Or?
Definitely. So in writing this book, it was difficult some days, even though my publisher was like, okay, you got to get this book in. And, hey, have you worked on chapter, whatever. So I wrote the book in spurts. And so I would like be in a space where I was like, okay, I can do this. And I would write 2 chapters at a time, maybe. And then I had days where I was like, I can't today, because it was so emotional and personal. And I put things in there that I hadn't really, discussed with anyone. And then it was like, okay, share this with the world. And I made that decision that when I decided to write it, that I'm going to be open, and this is my way of releasing that stuff, because I don't want it anymore. Right. So I'm making the decision to give it to the world, because I don't want it anymore. I don't want to carry it anymore. So I think it's difficult, but I think that it is definitely a stepping stone in the right direction when you're able to share. You know, in listening to myself, right, and using my intuition, I use that, when I'm working with my clients, because I always know, like, no, there's more, right? There's more. And we got to go there. And I know you don't want to, but we have to go there. So, it's not easy, but I think having that support definitely helps. Like, definitely helps.
This has been a very, very enlightening and very, very honestly heavy conversation. Like my heart's racing a little bit. I know that sounds kind of weird, but how do folks get your book?
drfanike.com.
Okay, that's easy breezy.
Yeah, drfanike.com. They can also message me on Instagram or Facebook at Dr. Fanike. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll include all of those links because I just clearly this is just going to continue to be successful more and more. And are you working on another book right now?
I am. So this book will come out. Well, I start writing officially in June. But this book will focus on money trauma and our relationship with our money.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. So good. Will you come back?
Of course.
That book? Yes. And friends, you know what? In the full disclosure of Mom Treading Water and Embracing Imperfections, this originally was going to be one episode, but we just got so much into it and so many conversations organically happened. And I feel so enlightened and more educated about this. And honestly, like some personal things for myself that I know I need to probably unload a little bit. So thank you for that. This is definitely, this is more than an interview personally for me. Thank you.
No problem.
I'm like,
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And again, friends, I will put all of Dr. Fanike's information to get her book, to get in contact with her. We will definitely be up to date on her second book. Can't wait for that. But really, I can't thank you enough, just not only for being here, but really, thank you for taking the time to enlighten us and educate us. It's really, it's life-changing. So thank you very much for that.
No problem. Thank you for the space.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you again for listening to the episode part 2 with Dr. Fanike. I will include all of her contact information in the show notes, as well as where you're able to purchase her book. Please, if you could, rate, review, subscribe, and share to Mom Treading Water. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you again for your time. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others.